Zhao founded 50 Hertz Tingly Foods to share Sichuan pepper from his hometown in Chongqing, China. Sichuan pepper is floral, citrusy, and tingly. Yao started his career in clean energy development and rural electrification and has a master's degree from Johns Hopkins University. We'll begin by showing you a short video and then bring on Yao.
Ma La is the iconic flavor of Sichuan cuisine. La refers to the burning heat from hot chili peppers, but Ma is the delightful tingling sensation from Sichuan pepper, Hua Jiao, that is novel to world foodies. There are two types of Sichuan peppers, red and green. As with grapes, the red is not a more mature version of the green. They are two varieties with distinct flavors. Both are native to Sichuan, and while the red pepper's been used in cooking for centuries, the green variety has only become popular over the past 20 years, even in China. We want to tell you more about this unsung spice and explore together innovative uses of its citrusy aroma and that tingling sensation. Join us on our journey to make Sichuan pepper the next addition to the culinary world.
Hello, everyone. My name is Zhao. I'm the founder of Tingly Foods. Thank you so much, Emily, and the entire Botanic Garden team for having me. And more importantly, thanks to everyone choosing to spend your Saturday morning with me and with everyone, and to learn more about this unique, delicious, and novel spice from my hometown, Sichuan and Chongqing. I can't wait to tell you more about it. So let's get started. I see everyone's already placing your where you're from in the chat. I'm talking to you from my home in Washington D.C. in the capital. So at the very beginning of the presentation, I want to have a sense of so how much do you know about this about Sichuan pepper? So we have a very small poll about this. If you can submit your vote, that would be wonderful. You're very familiar with it. You cook with it with them all the time, or you're somewhat familiar with it. I've heard about them and tried, but but really don't know much about it. Or you have never heard of it, or never tried it. If you can tell me more about it. I think the result will come up in shortly.
So we've actually got, if you click over to the tab next to chat, it says polls. You can see a live updating of how the poll is doing.
It's next to, oh yes, that's right. There it's, wow. So 62% said we're somewhat experienced with this spice. About 30% said they're very familiar with it, cook with them all the time, and about 8% says I've never heard about it. Great. So you're in for a treat. We're gonna have a tingly hour in the next hour. So let me tell you why are you talking to me? Why I'm telling you this? So I am actually the founder of 50 Hertz Tingly Foods. I want to make Sichuan pepper and this tingling sensation a new flavor and stimulation in your food and drinks. And this was me last month in the Guardian. There was an article about us, Rebel with a Tingly Cause. I think this flavor and sensation can go beyond Sichuan food or Chinese food, and should be known to more people because it's really it's novel. It's novel to the world and has a lot of potential applications. So that's why you're talking to me. But actually, my background is in clean energy. I spent the first 10 years of my career working in clean energy, rural electrification for the World Bank and the United Nations. But now I'm actually, the joke was, I have spent the first 10 years fighting against the oil and gas industry, but now I'm selling oils, but Sichuan pepper oils as one of our products. So that was me in New York last month. And also, I think, also because where I'm from, I was born and raised in this city called Chongqing. I don't know how many of you know about this city. It's a city with 33 million people, just small city. Um, but yeah, let me show you. This is my hometown. Chongqing was part of Sichuan. Sichuan, most of you know, it's famous for its mala flavor. For its food, for panda. The photo here on the top right is a hot pot. As you see, it's actually floated with Sichuan pepper on top of the hot oil. So the numbing flavor is essential for the cuisines in Sichuan. We cook with it every day. And the other photo is actually a typical morning breakfast scene that I took this photo when I was in China last year, and people slurping spicy and numbing noodles on the street, on the sidewalk, on the plastic stool. So it's really, sort of grassroots but delicious morning breakfast scene. Okay, so now we're actually going to delve into what we're talking about today. So when we talk about flavor, right? I think um, when people talk about flavor, they usually focus on the smell and taste, right? So the smell, it actually is the more dominant part of flavor. So imagine if where you are having a cold, and you cannot smell anything, so you cannot taste anything. So smell is the dominant part of the flavor tasting. But there's actually a third major flavor sense that's often overlooked. It's actually the physical sensation of this touch and temperature and pain. If you can actually, type in the chat, when we talk about, a touch from a food to your mouth and tongue, what can you think of? Um, let's see if we have any answers from the audience. Right. So um, the most actually common, the common sensation you feel from food is probably the burn of chili peppers. It's perhaps the most familiar example, but there are many others too. For example, if you drink wine, right, you feel this mouth feel from the tannins, this sour astringency from wine, or the silky mouth feel from adding butter to your food. Those are all actually sensations adding to your food from an ingredient. But today, actually, we're gonna talk about this tingling sensation from huajiao, from Sichuan pepper. There's also wasabi, right? If you think about wasabi or horseradish, it gives you that kick. That's also a sensation from food. So there are three dimensions of flavor tasting. So we're focusing on the touch, and it's the touch is from huajiao. So I'm going to organize my presentation today on actually trying to dispel some of the misunderstandings and misnomers of huajiao, because from your poll earlier, actually most of you are somewhat familiar with Sichuan pepper, but there are a lot of details about this. I think the audience today is a very knowledgeable group. So I want to tell you what should we avoid. Some of the things most people don't know. First, actually, um, so these are some of the misunderstandings I will be talking about. And first, actually, Sichuan pepper, this name itself is actually a misnomer. Um, so first of all, Sichuan pepper is actually not just from Sichuan, even though I think the reason why we call it Sichuan pepper is because Sichuan food has become very famous. But actually, huajiao is the proper name, or flower pepper. The literal translation is flower pepper. Huajiao is actually from this whole region, from Sichuan, but also from Chongqing and Guizhou, Yunnan, Gansu, Shanxi, that whole region, because that region has the right altitude, and it's very mountainous. So Sichuan pepper prefers mountainous terrain, and sultry summer and freezing cold winters. So in fact, I know actually a few people, they are planting Sichuan pepper in their backyard in Virginia, in the Shenandoah area, because actually DC, even though it doesn't have the high altitude, the mountainous terrain, but the hot summer and cold winter is actually the same, is the same as Sichuan to plant this spice. So Sichuan pepper is actually in itself is a misnomer. And then the other biggest misnomer is actually Sichuan peppercorn, right? Most people say, oh, we use Sichuan peppercorn in our food, but actually huajiao has nothing to do with peppercorn. um, Huajiao is actually a prickly ash citrus fruit. So the actual more accurate way to say, that spice is, perhaps you can say, Sichuan pepper berry fruit. It's actually a fruit. It belongs to the citrus family. Um, yeah, I will talk about why 50 hertz soon. I saw one of the questions. Um, so it's actually, so you can see it's prickly ash. So you can see on the photos on the left, you can see the very sharp, thorny thorns on the branches. They're very dangerous, actually. The harvest, I'll show you photos later. The harvest to harvest Sichuan pepper is very laborious and sometimes gets very bloody, and no automation. So peppercorn and nothing to do with peppercorns. So black peppercorn, right? The flavor and its capsaicin from the peppercorn family is concentrated in the seeds. Um, but Sichuan pepper actually is the other way. The flavors and potency are concentrated on the skin, and then and having actually the seeds in the spice is a sign of inferior quality. So peppercorn, it's hard to avoid. Even sometimes I say, Sichuan peppercorns, um, but peppercorn itself actually is a misnomer. And so the other thing is Sichuan pepper. I think for this group, you probably know already, it's not hot and spicy. um, Sichuan pepper has no capsaicin. In fact, in the process of me doing this business, my biggest marketing challenge is people think I'm a hot sauce company, or I'm a mala company, but actually I'm only doing the super floral, citrusy, and tingling sensation. So I have to explain to people again and again, we're not Sichuan pepper is not a chili pepper. It's not hot, but just tingly. And also, but interesting is Sichuan pepper is actually the indigenous spice to China. It's been used in the cooking for thousands of years, since ancient times. Whereas actually chili peppers, as you know, is a product from the Columbian exchange. It was introduced to China in, I think, 400 years ago from the trade, from the trading routes. I think Columbus. So it's actually a New World product. Um, so yeah, so Sichuan pepper is actually not hot and spicy at all. Yes, I'm actually monitoring the chats. You guys are these are all very good questions. I think we'll have ample time to address your questions, and I would love to have this discussion. I think the other thing is, The other thing, a misunderstanding or misnomer is that most people think Sichuan pepper is only red, and very few people know the green variety, which I think is a new kid around the block. So the red one is perhaps the most familiar to everyone, and it's been used in cooking for thousands of years. It defines a lot of the iconic Sichuan dishes, right? Kung Pao chicken, mapo tofu, you name it. Um, but in the past 20 or 30 years, the green variety was domesticated, and then a group of chefs from my hometown Chongqing, in the process of adding them to the hot pot soup, people realized the beauty and the charm of the green variety. Um, it's the green variety is not a less mature version of the red, but it's just two different varieties. Think of them as wine grapes. You have white wine grapes and red wine grapes. They are completely different with very distinct flavors, and requirement of the terroir, right? So the green variety is more floral, more citrusy, brighter, and it pairs better with fish, seafood, and vegetables. Whereas the red variety, is earthier, is woodier, and has this warm feeling and smell, and it goes better with red meat, with tofu, um, and so they are quite different. So actually, I compare them as white wine and red wine, because white wine pairs better with fish and vegetables, and white meat, and red wine goes better with red meat. So this is since this is the Botanic Garden crowd, so I actually sort of organized the 1 yearly cultivation harvest cycle. So I think Sichuan pepper, the after so I did this research when I was visiting farmers and my suppliers, and so they started pruning the trees early in the year, so January, February, and then it started booming and blooming in March, so in the springtime. But the harvest actually happens starting from May all the way through the end of September. Really depends on where, right? As I said, it's really a wide region, not just in Sichuan, but it can it can go all the way down to Yunnan province, quite far south, and then go all the way to the north to the Shanxi and Gansu province. So the harvest season starts from May for the green Sichuan peppers, and then it goes all the way to August and September for the red Sichuan peppers. And the harvesting is really tough, because for anyone who has been to China, it's the summer is brutal. It's super humid and hot, and the farmers have to wear those heavy gloves, try to avoid the sharp thorns, and using that scissors to cut the peppers. There's no automation, so it's actually this whole industry. It's really interesting because when I talk to the farmers, a lot of them are trying to actually move out of growing Sichuan pepper because it's difficult, it's hard. If they replace the Sichuan pepper trees with or huajiao trees with apple trees or peach trees, they can get more tourism income and sell the fruit easier. So it's a really sad situation. It makes me sad. It's actually part of the reason why I'm doing this business. I think if I can open up the knowledge, open up the platform for the world to know more about huajiao and Sichuan pepper, perhaps there will be more income for the farmers and save this quote unquote dying or declining industry, the huajiao industry. So I will move on to the next. Okay, so now we're getting into the interesting part, um, the tingling sensation. Why why does so what caused this tingling sensation? It's basically this chemical called hydroxy alpha sensual. So the tingling sensation is caused by this chemical, this molecule. Um, and this molecule can only reach the nerve receptors in very thin epidermis, in a very thin skin, such as your lips and mouth. So if you apply citron pepper to your normal skin, you wouldn't feel the tingle, but you would only feel it in your mouth and lips. So you can, so that's how this chemical, the chemical is the enabler of this tingling sensation. But the mechanism behind the tingles is still actually up to debate. So there are open research. So actually, I encourage you to look up more if you're interested. My understanding is that this this chemical, this molecule, um, can temporarily block the flow of potassium from your nerve to cause that buzzing sensation, to make you feel numb. So that's the research so far. But I think it's still sort of the scientists are still finding out more about it. And this is me with Professor Haggard. So why my company is called 50 Hertz Tingly Foods? That's because 50 hertz is the buzzing frequency you feel on your lips and tongue when you eat citron peppers. And it's actually not junk science. It was published in a peer-reviewed paper in the Royal Society Proceeding B. It's the science journal from the Royal Society in London. And the lead professor, Professor Haggard, in this photo, he is the Dean of Neuroscience Department at UCL, University College London in London, and I went to visit him in the past summer, and he gave me his blessings for using his science result for my brand, and he was elated when I wrote to him. He said, "Oh, I would have never thought my science work could be put into good use." So this is the paper. So on the left is the paper. You could look it up. Um, they concluded that the 50 hertz is the buzzing frequency. Um, so citron pepper also has a very a sad history in the U.S. because it was wrongly banned for 4 decades. The USDA placed a ban on this on citron pepper in 1967 because they thought, because it's citrus fruit, they thought citron pepper can bring in a citrus canker bacteria into the US that will attack other citrus trees. So they banned it. But actually, in the early 2000s, between 2002 to 2006, USDA actually realized citron pepper are still being illegally imported into the US. Um, and into the US, but there's no canker bacteria. So they realized their mistake. So they lifted the ban, but they actually added a restriction. Any importers have to heat treat the spice to 140 degrees, and that will kill the flavor. That's why actually for decades, the citron pepper you get in the U.S. Have inferior quality. But now, actually in 2007, they actually also lifted the ban, but also the heat treatment requirements. So now actually there's no heating requirement when you import the citron pepper, but a lot of the importers, they don't, obviously I care more about this, so I know this, but a lot of importers, they're mass commodity importers, they don't really care about this, so they still have citron pepper heat treated to 140 Fahrenheit degrees, that kills the flavor and sensation. And there are actually really good reporting from the New York Times, from the USDA own website. I provided the links here if you are if you're interested in knowing more about it. So how can we tell the quality from the good citron pepper and the bad citron pepper? Here's actually some photos. The good ones should have very bright colors, very floral aroma, and a very potent taste, and very few black seeds. As I said earlier, black seeds in the peppercorn world is where the flavor is from, but in Sichuan pepper world, it's bad. It's bitter, and you cannot eat it. So so the photos on the left is what we sell in our website on our website, and then the peppercorns on the right is the peppercorns you normally find in the American market. So this is actually just a photo of our suppliers. They are hand picking the twigs and the twigs and black seeds from the new harvest. So I want to leave ample time um, to, um, to to the audience to ask questions. I see a lot of comments, and I want to answer all of them. So I just want to quickly go through my little entrepreneurial journey. As I said, 50 Hertz is my name. I thought it was quite a interesting and witty name. We are actually making citron pepper oils. Um, Actually, the green citron pepper oil is where I started the business, and now we have expanded to other products, and the dried peppers and also the peanuts. Um, and very lucky when I started the business, Fusha Dunlop, perhaps the most famous food writers in Sichuan food, found out about the green Sichuan pepper oil and made a dandan noodle with our green Sichuan pepper oil. That brought me the first group of customers, and I'm really really grateful to have this kind of shout out. Because having a shout out from Fusha is like a footballer getting a shout out from Messi. It's really a big deal for me. And I was very fortunate to have actually I met her in London, also on the same trip when I met Professor Haggard. I met her for lunch. She's just really lovely. We talked a lot about traveling in China and reminiscing Chinese literature. She's just really lovely. And then again, another lucky break, our oil was picked up by the New York Times. Um, the New York Times wrote about the oil, and we overnight we received 20,000 orders. It was incredible. It was incredible, and but we were so young and inexperienced, so we also made a lot of mistakes. I think a lot of perhaps some of you in the audience are actually one of my first customers from the New York Times. So I'm very grateful for you, and despite all the mistakes and we have made along the process. And I just want to highlight this product actually, because as I said, I think Sichuan pepper is this novel new sensation that can be applied to many food. So we actually started making snacks. Like this is our first snack, our Tingly Sichuan pepper peanuts. And I realized actually people really like this new stimulation in their enjoyment of food. So we made our first snack, and it's been selling really well. And this is the future that I envision. I want to first apply citron pepper and the tingling sensation um, um, to more food. Peanuts is just the start, right? Why can't it be potato chips or popcorn, or actually adding it to your cocktail? Actually, there are artisan mixologists making tingly cocktails. But also, actually, as I said, this sensation touch, this tingling sensation, is actually not just from citron pepper. There are other ingredients that gives you a similar sensation. There's Japanese sansho, the green one, and there's also Timur from Nepal, and also there's a flower from Brazil called jambu, that also gives you a buzzing sensation. And also, I really want to build a community that revolves around this new sensation, and champion and introduce this new sensation with me, with 50 Hertz, to more Americans, to the world, actually. So I want to expand that community. So I actually gonna I want to end this my presentation with another poll. Um, I want to I want to hear your reaction. How do you like how do you like Sichuan pepper? You have if you I have tasted it before and love this new sensation and the flavor, or I had it before and I can get into it with the right application and recipe, or I've never tried it and I'm intrigued now, or I have had it but I'm not a big fan. So so um, if I can actually know more about your reaction, very interesting. Because I'm gonna show you the result of actually a broader audience in the next slide. So the polls are coming in. Um, so more than 50% of the audience, 54% said I've tasted before and love this new sensation. And about 27% said I've never tried it and I'm intrigued now. Um, I'm really happy to hear. And I've had it before and I can get into it. That's about 60%. And only 4% said I'm not a huge fan. Um, but thank you for still being here and learning this new spice. But what I want to show you, this is my last slide. We because of doing this business, we were selected by the Target, the store, in their accelerator program. So we had access to very detailed level consumer data as part of the benefit of being part of the Target accelerator program. And it was amazing because um, very similar to the polls that we just did. Um, 36% said 36% they have never tried this flavor. So that's a big group that for me to tap into. Um, but 22% said we love this flavor, and 20% said um, they haven't tried this flavor, but they're interested. But only 10% said they do not like it. So I think maybe I'm onto something. Maybe we can really make this a new flavor and sensation for the world with the right people, with the right application, with the right products and the recipes. So I actually want to end my presentation here because I see so many comments and questions in the chats, and I want to answer all of them. So thank you so much for your time. And I'm so happy to share this unique spice from my hometown, Chongqing and Sichuan, with all of you. Thank you so much.
Amazing. Yeah, we've learned so much already. But we've got tons of questions coming in from the chat that I would like to ask you about.
Yeah.
So we've got these sort of organized into categories. So folks in the audience, if we're not going in order, don't worry, we've got them all down. So first of all, about the sensation, is tingly different from numbing?
Same. It's the same. I think numbing has a quote unquote negative connotation. So in my marketing lingo, I'm trying to say tingling because it's mixed or buzzing or carbonated or fizzling. It gives you a positive spin. Um, so it's not anesthesia or pins and needles, right? So I think it's the same.
And about how long does the sensation last? And is that different from green versus red?
So, good question. It really depends, right? Because I am such a Sichuan pepper head now, and I'm so numbed, comfortably numbed. For me, it lingers for maybe a minute. So it's really playful because it goes away. It lingers for a minute or two, and it goes away. So it's a playful sensation. But I know, some people, different people have different level of comfort to a new stimulation. So it could last, maybe 5 minutes. But I think it's a slippery slope. People constantly tell me it's addictive. They want to have more. They don't want it to go away, so they want to keep having it. So it really depends. It's similar to chili peppers, right? Some people think that burning sensation lasts for a long time, but some people wants more. So it depends. I think I missed, and did I miss another part of your question? You said something that how
No, no,
long does it linger?
oh,
Okay.
I said, is there a difference between green and red? Does one
Oh
last
yeah.
longer than the other?
To me, to be honest, they are very similar in terms of the tingling level. I don't think you can differentiate them um, by the tingling level, but how the potency of tingling. It's really just the aroma and the taste are different. But tingling, they're both very potent.
So since there's no capsaicin, you probably don't measure these in Scoville units. Is there any measurement of the intensity?
Short answer is no, and that's a great question. So yes, you cannot measure the Scoville scale. We're actually, full disclosure, we're actually working on this with some research institute. We want to be the company or the research arm to have actually this scale to be able to first measure the tingling level. But no, there's no measurement at all at the moment. If you have
Um,
resources to do that, actually, please actually reach out. We're in the talks with a few people. Yeah,
yeah, you heard it here,
maybe
folks.
with
If
the
you want to keep
botanic
investigating
garden. Maybe with the
intensity
botanic
levels,
garden.
you can reach out to Yao.
Mm-hmm.
So the next sort of grouping of
Mm-hmm.
questions are a little bit more general about Sichuan pepper or huajiao. So if Sichuan pepper is a misnomer, why not call it huajiao?
Yeah, I mean, I would love to. I would love to. As you could tell, I was sort of switching between huajiao and Sichuan pepper. I think it's just I'm running a business, right? So I want to be able to reach to most people, and maybe the search engine optimization would pick up Sichuan pepper more or Sichuan pepper corn more, right? But yeah, I actually, at the end of the day, if I can be quote unquote successful, I think we should call it huajiao, or at least flower pepper. Let's call it huajiao. Or also, the tingling sensation. Why do we have to call it tingling sensation? Can we call it ma? Right? Ma is the right word, and it's actually easy, simple enough. Let's just call it the ma sensation. As like now everyone knows umami, but at the beginning probably not. So I think if we have made it, we should call it ma and call it huajiao, and call it by its name. And but I think it's a long process, and I think the audience today here will be perhaps the first adopters.
That's great. Do you know what the botanical name is for huajiao?
It's a long name. It's zen. I cannot pronounce it. It's long. It's Zenexum. Yeah,
Xanthoxylum. I do actually know that
Zensoxanum.
one.
There you go. Thank you. Thanks for saving me right there.
And then sort of a follow-up, are the red and green the same genus? So both Xanthoxylum, but different species? Are there multiple red species and multiple green species, or is there just one red and one green?
Great question. There are many species. Right? Think of it. There are Shiraz and there's Chardonnay. There's so it really depends on the terroir, right? So this is actually a really long answer. So basically, there are a lot of different varieties, and you can actually taste the difference, like wines, right? You can taste the difference between Shiraz and from the other variety, because of the sunlight and the soil, and the terroir is just different. So so for example, we carry two varieties of the red ones. One is called Da Hong Pao. um, the photo that I showed you earlier, really bright red, big berry, and when they open up, it looks like a flower. That's the Da Hong Pao variety, most famously from the southern Gansu province and the very northern Sichuan province. To me, they are just visually striking, and also very woodsy, has this very woodsy flavor, less tingly, to be honest with you. I think they're less tingly. And then we also carry the other variety called Hanyuan. Hanyuan is actually perhaps the most famous variety because in the ancient times they were called tribute peppers because they were as a tribute to the emperors and sent to Beijing. So that variety is famous. Um, so it's actually more tingly. It has this very orangey floral um, smell from that. So that's two varieties on the red side, but there's a lot more. So I'm just talking about these two. On the green side, we also carry two varieties. One is from my hometown Chongqing, around Chongqing. It's called a 九叶青, 9 green leaves. If I'm not mistaken, that variety is the first green variety that was domesticated at the beginning of the beginning of 99 in the 1990s. That one is super lemony, very aromatic. The other variety we carry is called Tengjiao. Um, Now more famous because it's from Sichuan. There's a lot of companies using that, so it's more famous in China. Again, but there are many. So think of them as wines, and there are many. And the terroir is not just a French concept. It's really also applies to Sichuan peppers as well.
I think that is such a good analogy to really help us understand because we don't think that wine is just limited to red and white, so really allowing us to expand beyond that. And then I guess there's middle grounds in wine. You've got a rosé. Is there such a thing as the rosé of Huajiao?
So I mentioned there are other um, the cousins of Sichuan pepper, right? For example, I would think the Japanese sansho, shanjiao, um, perhaps it's like a rosé. Um, it's actually we're actually in the process of sourcing them. Um, Compared to Sichuan pepper, it's even more lemony. It's even more aromatic, but in a very lemony way. It's so lemony. So the Japanese stone milled. They first dry the fruit and then use the skin. Like remember, they stone mill that skin to fine powder, and then they sprinkle the powder in very fatty food like
Mm.
unagi, like the fatty eel, and in their ramen, right? So it's very heavy, hearty, fatty food to alleviate that fattiness. So I would actually compare maybe Sancho to Rosé because also it's less numbing, it's less tingly to me. So perhaps that's the middle ground.
Yeah, interesting.
Yeah.
So I want to talk a little bit about whatever the level you know about Huajiao cultivation, if people are wanting to grow it. But we did get a couple of really interesting questions. You mentioned that the farming process for this fruit is very intensive and,
Hmm.
you described it as bloody. Do you so let's see. I want to make sure I'm getting. Do the
Hmm.
pepper farmers you work with, how does that work? And do you have a sense of the sort of fair trade treatment of suppliers you're working with? Do you
Yeah.
have any labor concerns or things that consumers can be aware of
Yeah.
engaging with Huajiao as you seek to enhance the popularity?
Yeah, no, that's such a good question, and it touches upon the social responsibility side of the business, which I really want to enhance in due course. Full disclosure, actually, I actually because I started the business 3 years ago. When I first started it, it was 2018, 19, so it's relatively new, and then the pandemic started. So and then I haven't been back in China, so I actually haven't really experienced, you know, on the ground the harvesting. I'm going in August, and I'm gonna do a live stream and do more research and talk to more farmers. I'm gonna have live stream event for all of my customers. So to me, actually, the whole harvesting process, I'm still learning. Actually, I'm still doing more research on this. On the other side, actually, we really emphasize on the the farmers benefit side of it. We definitely pay more because they actually help us package the products. So we definitely give them, a much higher salary than they normally would get. Like that's part of actually the process. But they, whatever they used to get, because there are a lot of middlemen, and we, definitely we go. So that's the benefit of, coming from that region. When I started the business, I just went into that region and, cold called some suppliers, speaking the dialect, and doing business is very casual in China. So speaking the dialect and building the trust quickly is definitely part of the game. And so I was able to do that. So yeah, so we were able to establish very direct relationship with the suppliers and farmers, and so we can cut off the middleman and, to deliver the profits directly to the farmers. But it's such a good question, and I want to um, um, you know delve more into this. Probably we would love to publish a social responsibility report in the future when we have, even bigger scale. We're a very tiny little business right now, but in the cultivation part of the question, um, I know a lot of people actually, since doing the business, I know a lot of people are started cultivating, having the Pacific pepper trees in their backyard, all the way from Hudson Valley, to Shenandoah Valley. And also there are actually people on the West Coast, I think in Seattle, on the Vashon Island outside of Seattle, and also even in San Francisco. Actually, the famous food writer, food scientist, Harold McGee. Since I started doing business, Harold McGee wrote this red Bible called On Food and Cooking. It's like a, textbook for any food scientist. And he actually, I first know 50 hertz from reading that book, and I reached out to him, and he actually harvest his own citron pepper in his own backyard in San Francisco. Probably not to he wouldn't probably eat it, but it is a very pretty tree. And it bears very pretty, as you saw in the photos, very bright red and green fruit. And that aroma, like flowers, right? That's why we call it huajiao, or flower pepper. That floral aroma. So yeah, I definitely encourage everyone to try to plant this in your backyard.
I love that. And there are more questions about sort of cultivation and growing, but I feel like I've got to move us on to the topic that most of the audience, I'm sure, wants to hear about. So I don't want to miss it. Let's talk about using Szechuan pepper and or huajiao to get that
Yeah,
ma sensation, and
yeah,
using the oil. So can you tell us a little bit about some of your favorite recipes to use it
yeah,
in? And then I'll maybe dive in, given
yeah.
however much time we have, into some of these additional questions.
Yeah, this is the exciting part. So let me tell you actually how I stumbled upon this business idea, because that's one of the uses. So I went home, and my mom was making a cucumber salad when I went home in 2018, for the Chinese New Year, for the Lunar New Year, which is just around the corner actually next week. I went home, and my mom was making a cucumber salad with some garlic and chili oil, and she finished it off with the green citron pepper oil. So I grew up eating this dish, right? But I have been in the US for a few years, and I've been all around the world, right? I've tried so many cuisines around the world. I lived in the Middle East, in India, and now in the US. But that flavor and that sensation really was a visceral reminder of my upbringing, after tried all of these dishes. So when I came back to the US, I brought back a bottle of the green citron pepper oil, and my partner, um, he was making a pasta dish, very simple. It's shallots, mushroom, and a lot of Parmesan cheese. So very umami laden a dish. And we added the green citron pepper oil that I brought back from China. It's a pasta dish, right? You wouldn't have. I would never have thought adding citron pepper, such a iconic, local spice, to pasta, to an Italian, dish. But it really worked out, because that, first of all, the floral flavor cut through the fatty cream and Parmesan cheese, and the tingling sensation works really well with carbs because if you have Sichuan pepper next time, you will notice the intense salivation in your mouth. Like it's just salivate so much. So your saliva works really well with fat and the carbs. It dissolves and it makes a little bit sweetness in your mouth. I think that's why. That's the experience that inspired me going on this businesses. I think okay, it can be added to pasta. It can be added to more food. We can make peanuts with it. We can make a lot of other things. So I would definitely encourage everyone to try, especially with the oil. The oil is very easy to use, but I would have to caution, really use it sparingly. Use it gingerly. Start with just a little drizzle. It goes a long way because it's very potent. It's a very high quality oil. So start small, but once you get used to the tingling sensation, as I said, it's a slippery slope. You might want to use more and more. um, but also, so try Western dish. Actually, if you like the sensation, you can really apply to anything. But you know and then there's also so many Chinese dishes you could use, right? Anything you make, mapo tofu, and I think Sichuan cuisine is really on the upward trajectory. There's so many people are making chili oils, and um, that's partly why people mistakes my business as, oh, you're another chili oil company. But no, actually, we're a sensory company. We're a sensation. We're selling a sensation. Um, so yes, so there's I definitely encourage you to try more, and yeah.
So, given the sort of either use in oil or the lighter floral sensation, is it important to use the huajiao sort of towards the end of the cooking process? Do you put it in right at the beginning? Is there any sort of general roadmap to that?
Yeah. So okay, sorry. Thanks for this question. So it actually really completes my thoughts. So I think there are uh, at least three ways, right? First, you could actually use huajiao to marinate your meat, because that actually that's how Chinese use it. My mom actually they would just grab about a handful of huajiao and throw into whatever broth they make, or throw in the meat they want to marinate, because it really removes that meaty odor from treating meat. It's actually it's been used. It's actually that's the original way of using Sichuan pepper at the beginning, because it's very floral and citrusy. And then you can cook with it, right? So you use with the dried peppers, you can use a pepper grinder, or if actually a coffee grinder, to grind it into fine powders, and then you can sprinkle them, or you can actually lightly fry them in butter, um, or cooking oil, and that would release the flavor from the skin. So that's the prep. But then if you want to actually um, use the oil, I think the oil form is actually the more sort of easier way to use it. Even for me, like I use the oil, and actually, um, interesting insight. After I talk to more and more restaurant these days, Chinese restaurants, I was trying to sell them my peppercorns. They said, "Oh, actually, we don't use peppercorns. We use oil. We don't want to deal with we don't want to deal with grinding and all of this. It's just easier to use the oil. Even they even use it, even though I think it's better to use as a finishing oil. I think a lot of people actually use it as a cooking oil because it's actually a high temperature oil. The base of the oil is rapeseed oil. Um, so it's actually a high temperature oil, so you could actually just cook with it, but or use it as a finishing oil. So you can use it as a prep. You can lightly fry them with butter and oil, or you can just use the Sichuan pepper oil directly.
That's great. I
Yeah.
know you mentioned cocktails early on. Do you have a particular cocktail that you recommend?
Yeah, so there's a one cocktail or mocktail actually. Now it's the dry January, right?
Yeah.
Uh, there is called a Sichuan Mule. Basically, it's gin or vodka. I think gin works really well actually because gin has a little floral and bitter, so it really works well with Sichuan pepper. So you could actually use the peppercorns to infuse the gin to make this. So there is, and then you add lime and some mint. The reason why I think it's really well with this called Sichuan mule is because usually you serve a Moscow mule in a copper cup, right? And then you put it in freezer or in the fridge, and you put a lot of ice and mint. So it's a really refreshing summer drink. And the other reason is um, Sichuan pepper has this tingling sensation, but it's basically the same as a fizzling sensation from drinking a beer or
Interesting.
drinking sparkling water, right? So if you just use La Croix or any sparkling water and add a little bit tingling to it, it will intensify the iciness and the cooling effect from whatever you want to enjoy. So for summertime, it's a really enjoyable sensation to have.
That is amazing and
Yeah,
seems like just about the perfect note to wrap up on. So
yeah.
I just want to say thank you so much to Yao for helping us explore Hua Jiao, the Ma sensation, and learn a little bit more about this fascinating group of plants. Thank you to the audience. We so appreciate you being here today. You guys are what make these programs run.